What if the epicness that we sometimes spend our entire lifetime searching for exists not in spite of the boulders, but thanks to the boulder version of you, that these boulders inspire you to become? Often, when we least expect it, life thrusts us into the role of the reluctant hero in our own story. How we respond in those moments can be the difference between thriving or just surviving. We believe that our story will be determined by how we dare to answer one burning question: how to choose to live. Join us as we explore the mindset shifts, innovative strategies, and captivating stories from my own life experience and those of my truly epic guests. So let's get this started. Oh my gosh, I am so excited today to welcome you to the How to Choose to Live podcast. My guest today is nothing short of epic. Katie is an internationally recognized leadership consultant. She's a coach. She's a professional speaker. And of course, she would not be on here if she were not an epic learning enthusiast who is dedicated to helping purpose-driven leaders create cultures of learning and accelerate individual and organizational impact. She's also the author of the award-winning book, Learning to Lead, woo-hoo-hoo, and the host of her own epic podcast, Chain of Learning. So, Katie, I am so excited to have you here today. So, why don't we just dive right in for everyone and maybe start by sharing a little bit of maybe your professional story?
Thanks, Meredith. I too am really excited to be here today and not just explore the professional side, but really how our personal sides influence how we show up as professionals, the impact we want to have. Because in my mind, it's not separate, right? We are sort of these whole human beings. But on the professional side, my journey has, been sort of a circuitous one, but looking back, all the threads connect together. Today, I am a consultant who helps organizations accelerate the rates of learning for their people and for their teams by creating cultures where there's psychological safety and curiosity, where leaders do what I call break the telling habit. So get out of that command and control, it's all my ideas, but rather how do we foster this place where everyone's creativity can be captured and cultivated as well. And, I have I actually came from a background in healthcare and health policy. I have a Fulbright scholarship and went to, have my master's in public health. But what I got excited about from looking at sort of the big picture was how do we as individuals show up with intention each and every day to make life better, to make process better, and to connect, to make the world better. And so that's really the core of what I do and the foundation of how I show up as a professional as well. And I'm so fortunate to have, through my book and my consulting, actually lived in Japan for a period of time and met a Toyota leader who I wrote this book about and won several awards. I've been able to speak on international stages over the last handful of years and just connect with global audiences. And that just gives me so much joy. And we can dive into all of that and sort of the content, but being a connector, a learner, and an international person is core of who I am and creating joy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love the Japan connection. My children's father was Japanese, actually from Nagoya. And so, for me, when I was going through school, like you, I was very academically gifted. I went to a prep school. I went to Georgetown, and I felt like we're being fed all of this wonderful information, but kind of like what you're alluding to, there was one big gaping answer that I felt I wasn't being given, and that was how to choose to live. How do we, kind of to your point, show up as the most epic version of ourselves, that big, bold, fulfilling expression of feeling truly alive. And it's interesting because, like you, I started feeling like the answer was beyond just the boundaries of the Western education.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that's been a huge sort of aha and revelation for myself as well. It sounds like we're very similar in some ways in our backgrounds. I was very academically minded, very high achiever, and goal oriented. Yet I've always had this big caring heart as well, and that's been influenced a lot by my parents and my dad, who I know we're going to talk about, and his motto about how today is a great day and how can you overcome adversity and show up with a positive spirit. But it was really through my time living in Japan a decade ago for several years. And you can see, for those of you watching the video, you see some Japanese calligraphy on the wall here, and these dolls that are like Daruma dolls, actually, that represent the Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8, that
Yes, yes,
perseverance that it takes to go achieve something. And it's about the setbacks and learning from it. But this motto on the back of my wall is a word that's intention in English, and the way it's written in the Japanese calligraphy or in the kanji symbols, it comes from 2 words. The first meaning it's actually a separate word, kokorozashi, which is the strength and spirit of your heart, your inner purpose, and then a symbol meaning direction. And I'd long thought intention was really important to who we are, not just as leaders, but as
yes,
people. But then it's like, oh, what's the strength of our heart? What's our purpose? And then how do we align our actions in the direction to actually fulfill that purpose, to achieve the impact that we want? And that's been, to me, that summarizes sort of the essence of who I am and what I try and help the clients that I work with embody, because we can get so focused on the results and the outcome and the
yes,
knowledge, but
yes,
it's about who we are in that being that
yes. Oh,
allows for
yes.
the achievement. So that is, yeah. So this mesh of Western and Eastern is so now imbued in who I am.
I love it. I love it. And I don't know what you've discovered, but for me, just exactly to that point, I feel like the clues are all around us.
Mm.
And in that word, I mean, I feel like that's so profound because I feel like there's so many of us, and our education often makes us feel like the key to our success is something to be found or conquered out there,
Yes.
as opposed to that the understanding that the true empowerment starts in here. In fact, I mean, speaking of clues, even the word itself, right? The first 2 letters, EM, are like me,
Mm.
but in the mirror, not pointing the finger out there, right? And so I feel like what you're talking about is so important because we overlook I think it's our responsibility slash opportunity to say, wait a minute, the key, it starts by committing to what I call in my world the sovereign of our own mind. And it sounds like
Mm.
that's so aligned to what you've discovered.
Yes, for sure. And I think or in my experience, and it sounds like for you too, and the clients you work with and I work with, that's the aha,
Yes.
right? It's the aha moment. And when you have that awakening,
Yeah.
it's like you truly step into your impact and your power, and your authenticity. It's not about, being this perfect person or this perfect leader, but it's really about that. How do we connect on this human level? And,
Right.
there's there's sort of a saying about respect for people and as a pillar of continuous improvement. But if you go to the origin in the Japanese, it's really respect for people actually is translated as holding precious what it means to be human.
Mhm.
Holding precious
Mhm.
what it means to be human. We can kind of tick the box of, oh yeah, we have respect for people, we ask them for their opinion, but holding precious,
Yes.
that humanity is
Yes.
is uh, is so powerful. And so, and it starts with us, right? We got to have
Yes.
to have that awakening, and then how do
Yes.
we align our actions with that purpose?
And I love that. What that also made me think of, Katie, is the reflection, holding precious the
Mm.
right to be perfectly imperfect as human beings ourselves, right?
Yes.
To be these learning,
Mm.
growing, expanding human beings, and that it's okay when we take one path and discover that's not the path for
Yeah.
me, or we take one path and maybe we stumble, and then kind of to your
Yes.
point,
Yeah, it's
fall
like,
down 7 times
yes,
and get up
totally.
eight. Yes,
You know,
yes,
like, these dolls that I hold up, these Daruma dolls, are actually like Weeble Wobbles. So,
yes.
woo, I'm gonna
I
be
love
really loud.
them.
I just dropped it off my hand, but
I love
it's,
them.
it, yeah, the path forward is inherently filled with stumbles and setbacks. Some
Yes,
small and some, as we know, are really big, but it's how you respond to that
yes,
that shows who you are as a human, because we know that that's this is
right.
inherent to life, right? So
Right. Absolutely. Um, so let's make that real for a moment because I know both you and I, we started out, we were academically trained, we were giving all these kind of resources, and we were basically advised this is the path to success, go along this way, you can't miss it,
yeah.
right? If you go straight, turn right, you can't miss it. Well, at some point the boulders start falling or something gets in that path that you are sure is not intended to be there. And then you really have to start asking those big, bold
Mm.
questions and discovering things about yourself that sometimes I think I speak for myself. I wasn't sure that I was ready for that in some of those moments. And there were certainly things that there were certainly boulders in my life that um, I felt like I could never be grateful for. And the idea
Mm.
of everything happening for a
Mm.
reason just felt like when I put my head on my pillow at night, I just felt like,
Yeah.
thanks, you can have that. I'm not getting it,
No.
right? So did you ever encounter that boulder? And did you have this perspective and understanding prior to the boulder, or did the
Mm.
boulder align this knowing
Yeah.
into where you are now?
So before I start with my boulder, I need to go back in time to talk about my dad's boulder and my
Yes.
parents' boulder, because that informed so much of my life, and then how I guess had more fortitude because of that experience, or to deal with those challenges. So my father, when he was in college, was in a severe motorcycle wreck, and it left him in the hospital for 2 years, was in a coma, ended up had surgeries for so many years, was disabled. But, by the time I was, born, through that whole thing, he lost 3 inches of his height and all of his physicality. He was a, big strapping athlete, 6'5" varsity crew player. Uh, Fast forward 10 years later, when I was born, and my parents, who were just dating 6 months, stayed together through that whole time. So that's a whole nother learning I had about perseverance and commitment and love. My dad had this incredible positive attitude. So he was a disabled physically person, but like enabled in spirit, and never let his disabilities get in the way of his professional success, his personal relationships. And his motto was, today's a great day. How can we focus on the positive and not on the negative? And so, growing up with somebody who had experienced some real significant trauma, my dad and then my parents together
Yeah.
taught me so much about how to handle those boulders, right?
Yes.
Um, so my boulders have never been quite as big as that in my life. I've had different physical situations that have come up, and I have, it's like I have permanent nerve damage from some, a surgery that that had something went wrong, but like my ability to get through that, and I have some forever impact on that, you know, was enabled through my dad's spirit. And then from the professional side, I had some really big challenges happened one time where I knew that I needed to leave my last internal role. Dynamics had happened such that it was no longer a great place for me. But I was newly pregnant when no one knew with my second kid. And it was like I had all this achievement oriented side that I was like in this really senior role. And it just, but I knew that I needed to make a change. So this is a big boulder I didn't expect, not on the physical side and not on the permanent damage side, but for me, for being this high achiever, always on like climbing the professional career track, to be totally derailed by this thing. And I realized, oh, well, I still have control. I can make a choice and I don't have to just react. I don't have to just sort of be done to what do I want to do with this? And I decided to get off that traditional career ladder and leap into the unknown. It was scary. And it's what launched my business. And I never thought that I was ready at that time to start my own business. And what would that look like? Within days of giving my notice, I had already had two contracts under, negotiation. People wanted to work with me, and that was the beginning of that was over 11 years ago, the beginning of my consulting practice. I would never have had the courage to step through that had that boulder not come
Yes.
in the way. And it's like, how did
Yes.
I respond to that? So, it wasn't as big as my dad's situation. And then later in his, fast forward 10 years later, he was diagnosed with ALS. And so that was my boulder 7 years ago. Or I guess no, I guess it was only I'm getting tied in the timelines. Doesn't matter. He died 8 years ago, but navigating that with him and seeing how he continued to use that power of today's a great day, even as he was losing his ability to use his arms, to breathe, to talk. And then how did I respond to that? And how did I show up to support him and to also manage my own grief in that process? Was because of this gift he and my mom gave me from an early age about how do you handle adversity and how do you choose to make today a great day, even when the day in the moment is not so great.
I love it, and I love it because what I feel the gift in that which you are making just so clear for people is that, especially when we start at a young age to approach our focus, what we're focusing on and what we make it mean from this kind of perspective that your father gifted you. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most priceless gifts that, I mean, the beauty of it, that it's not only impacted you, Katie, but it has given you the wind and the wings to now impact the lives of so many other people, so that when that figurative boulder came, and I really, really believe that. And if you're listening, you may have heard me say this, but I have come to believe at this ripe old age of 64 now, finally, after cursing so many of those boulders, I have come to really believe that often these boulders aren't coming to destroy us, even though we're positive they are. They're actually, usually, if we take a breath, they're coming to destroy the things that we have been allowing to keep us
Mm,
too small,
right.
right? Too small.
I,
Yes.
I I agree with that. And sometimes, as you said, like it's not like everything happens for a reason. I hate that phrase as well, by the
Yes.
way, because you're like, wait, so like my dad being in an accident or like,
Yes.
getting ALS, that happens for a reason. But the reason is the learning we can have from
Yes.
it. And I agree. I would never have left my career path, career trajectory role without having this, figurative boulder be dropped
Yes.
on me. And what I did with that, and it gave me the courage to leap
Yes.
into the next thing. And so it's how do we take these opportunities? And it doesn't mean we
Yes.
can't be angry or sad or upset at any level of these things happening to us. We need to process that and
Yes.
then take action in a different way. We can be mired in the anger, the
Yes.
frustration. We
Yes.
can choose to make it a better experience.
And what I love, and I just got like truth bumps here as I'm hearing you say that, is what I discovered in my most, again, profound boulder, was that in the intensity of the boulders, even the ones before, was that they did cause me to react, right? And it was this reaction, this anger, this frustration, whatever. It was thanks to not understanding what is the purpose of this happening right now, that, yeah, I may have thrown my hands up, but eventually I got tired of being there in that pain
Mm,
and decided to be open to what was an action that was going to make me feel just a little bit better.
mm,
So one of the things that I felt it impossible to feel grateful for, and that I got really angry about, well, what it pushed me toward was leaning more into understanding how some people, other people, face their big boulders and emerge as bigger, bolder versions of themselves. How did they play their inner games? What different questions did they ask?
mm,
And what were they doing? What did they stop doing? Right. And so I think that even in the anger, the frustration, ironically enough, sometimes that can become kind of the majesty of the whole life experience, and that it becomes part of this ask that in my case I never even really clearly knew
mm,
that I was asking. I was never really verbalizing it until all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, this just might be my heart's desire. And what a crazy, painful, but bizarre and yet wonderful way to have discovered it. And the best is yet to come.
mm. I'm I'm processing everything you said and resonate with the message. It's, it is so much about how do we just reframe. It's about the process and the reframe and then the
Yes,
action. And going back to this intention, this word of intention, like really, what is the impact you want to have? Who do you want to
yes,
be? Okay, so then how do I actually need to respond or behave to really align with that?
yeah,
And we can all get thrown off course. I mean, like, I'm not leading with wonderful purpose, intention every day, every moment of every
right,
day, but it's the grounding element for me to say, all right, how am I going to, what am I going to do with this? Like,
right.
my parents had another phrase, which I repeat sometimes, like, this is not what we want, but it's what we've got. So you may not want what's in front of you, but it is this
Yes,
reality. So what do you, so, and then, so you have a choice within that. You may not be able to change the exact situation, but you can change your mindset. You can change your actions, and that's so empowering. And going back to this, like the humanity of us, I mean,
yes.
that's real. And it doesn't mean we have to push aside the negative experience we have as well, but it's how do you move through that to be able to get to that other side.
And to your point, what if that very preciousness of being human is, what if it is in the grand majesty of life? What if it is intentional for us to have those course corrections along the way? What if that is really part of the destiny, part of the plan to begin with, right?
Yes. And that's what as a parent, I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I see so much of my responsibility is helping them start to see and experience that from an early age too, that it's not
Yes,
always just the destination, because we know the destination is going to be filled with all of these challenges. How do you navigate those challenges? How do you respond to them? And that's what we gives us that grit. That's what gives
yes,
us the, Carol Dweck, who's been on my podcast, says the learning
yes,
mind, like the growth mindset, opposed to the fixed mindset. But to see these challenges as the opportunity, uh, it's the challenges are the way
yes,
we move forward, because,
yes.
as opposed to like seeing them just as something that's going to stop us forever.
Absolutely. And to your point, if we didn't experience some of these challenges, at the end of the day, when we took our last breath, would we even feel like we have truly lived? Would we be that same
Mhm.
version of ourselves? I mean, I really have come to believe, and I feel like it's reflected in everything that you're saying, that the duality that we experience in this thing called life is is not only intentional, but it is to our benefit. It is only because we have not been
Mm.
necessarily, I'll use the word schooled or inspired. Fortunately, you were gifted with the opportunity to see that challenge is just, one side of the samurai sword,
Yeah.
right? The other is opportunity,
Yes.
right? And it depends on
Mm.
what you're approaching it with,
Yes. They are the two sides of the sword. They're not separated, right? They coexist. When I
right?
work with, leaders and leadership teams, one of the things I try to help them see and realize is that actually the way to become a more impactful leader is to share your failures, your challenges, your vulnerabilities, some of the stories of, times that haven't gone so well, because that is what connects with people and helps to see your humanity as well. So when we feel like, oh, leaders need to be this perfect, like behind this, I don't know, this persona of that I have, that, I everything goes right and great and my ways, so good. You actually have fewer followers or people getting on board with you than if
Right.
you really show you don't always have all the answers. You've had stumbles along the way, and to share those stories, just the power of the humanity is actually what inspires the leadership in the team.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think in a way it's a form of demonstrating your trust in the people that you are gifting your story with, right? I
Yes,
think
well, you have to be vulnerable. So
yes.
when you share something that is vulnerable, you are through that process
Yes.
demonstrating that you trust the people that you're sharing that with in some capacity, right? You're trusting them with your experience and your
Yes.
vulnerability, and that begets, that trust begets, more trust and more working together and more, willingness to try something or to be willing to fail and all of that. So we have to break this leadership mindset that
Yes.
leadership's about being perfect and having all the answers, but rather it's about setting, what I like to say, this is the leading to learn frameworks, that set that clear
Yes.
direction. Where do we need to go? Provide the
Yes.
space and support for people to get there, and then develop ourselves, work on ourselves and how we are showing up with that intention first and foremost.
I love it. I love it. So share with those of you who are listening the concept of Ikigai if people are not
Hmm.
familiar with this. I think this is really, really powerful and something that can be really important relative to how to choose to live.
So Ikigai it's very related to this concept of kokorozashi, or intention, which is pronounced shiko in Japanese. It is a concept about finding your life's purpose. Both, it's what's here in your heart, both what you're good at, what the world needs, what you like to do, and pulling that all together and into, creating this real sense of energy. It's more than just like, oh, my purpose as a leader, but it's very heart and energetically driven. And it could be something, it doesn't have to be something like truly world changing. It's just what gets you up and motivates you to be a better human being in all aspects of your life. That is your true ikigai.
I love it. I love it. And so do you find that, I mean, how did you know that aside from the fact that everything seemed to like flow nicely. I mean, a month before you said, I'm leaving
Mm.
the, being inside the corporate world.
Mm.
Did you have, I mean, did you consciously know that you knew what your purpose was?
Wow, that's a great question. One that I haven't been asked before. I thought you were going to ask, when did I know that I needed to make a change? But And that certainly that's a clear time and moment in
Yeah.
my life when I was like, a friend
Yes.
of mine said something needs to change, and I'm like, nothing
Yes.
can change, nothing can change. And I was like, oh, that's very stressful. Like, what,
Yes.
something clearly needs to change. You know, I don't think there was, if I look back or think back right now, there was not like a one like moment that
Yes.
like with this, aha,
Yes.
this is my
Yes.
purpose.
Yes.
It has just been the culmination of understanding of things that have always been there for me,
Yes.
which is around
Yes.
human connection, about learning, about being
Yes.
this, like exploring the world, about creating something better, but that I've learned through my success and failures. And I feel like where I am now is really almost the culmination of that. There's this weaving metaphor that I discovered when I lived in Japan, and actually is it was this that was the aha moment of how I was going to structure my book, and it's around purpose. So
Mm.
I was talking to the subject of my book, Isao Yoshino. He's now an 80-year-old, 80 years old, had lived in the US and Japan and worked at Toyota for 40 years. Anyhow, I was talking to him and I said, there are two threads of purpose that I see running throughout your life. And I said, I'm trying to figure out how to weave those threads together. And he said, well, do you know we actually have a metaphor in Japan for kimono weavers, kimonos being, the
Yes.
Japanese
Yes. Yes.
traditional clothing. And it's that the warp threads, which are the vertical threads on a loom. Actually, I have them on the cover of my book. The vertical
Oh,
threads on a loom that are laid down before someone weaves something. They're stable and fixed. They're known from the beginning, and they represent the kimono weaver's inner intention and desire to bring this fabric to life. And then the weft threads are the ones that are incorporated and interwoven. They can be thick, they can be thin, they can be different colors, they often break, and I,
mm.
I explored this metaphor, and it really is around purpose, that they're the our purpose is the intersection of the known and the discovered. The known are those threads that have run through our lives from the beginning. When we look back, they are solid, they're there, they're constant. And the weft threads are the ones that we've incorporated through experience, through things going well, and those boulders hitting us, and things breaking and being, pretty terrible. And maybe there's a hole in the fabric, but it's that intersection of the known and the discovered that creates our sense of purpose. And then that can relate to our Ikigai too. So for me, purpose is not just immediately known. There are elements that are known, and then there are elements that we discover through our progression of life.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Because I ask you that question because I'm often asked by people, well, when did you know you wanted to fill in the blank? Right? And to your point, I think that a lot of the times that if you're listening to this and you're kind of in this place of like, why can't I figure out what my purpose is? I have no idea what I want to do. We go for it so aggressively, believing that we're going to stumble upon it the way we would find our ideal car, or that, to your point, the clouds are going to open, the angels are going to come out singing the hallelujah chorus, whoa, and all of a sudden, like, on a silver platter, there it is, an envelope that says, inside is your purpose, right? And like you, I do believe that subconsciously or spiritually or in my soul, there was always an ask that maybe even came with me at birth. And so that was kind of a purpose that existed just simply by me being here and alive. And that even had the potential to carry on in perpetuity in some cases, even if I was no longer alive, right? But it was never kind of written out, hand delivered into my mailbox. This is what it is. When you start doing this, you will be quote unquote happy, right? And so part of the magnificence of it, I think, is that to your point, I had to experience those boulders. The boulders were the pointers, was the GPS, the left turn, the right turn that helped me go around the detours and realize that this was actually the path. And then the destiny is waking up one day and going, oh my gosh, I've arrived at my first Airbnb. Here I am, you know? And that feeling of kind of wonder and joy, even when things are quote unquote challenging around you, but all of a sudden you're kind of loving it. It's delicious. You're realizing that this is making you
Mm.
bigger, not more compressed. And that's what I feel like you're also expressing.
Yes, and our knowledge, our understanding, I should say, of our purpose continues to evolve because we continue to have experiences and
Yeah.
discover and integrate that into our life tapestry. And
Yes.
so it gets more rich and more known as we go through it. So I love that. I love that metaphor too. And it also gave me the truly the loom on which to weave the
Yeah.
stories of my book too. But that warp and weft metaphor has been one that people walk away from my book, even though there's so much about leadership and management in there.
Yes.
They say that's the one that's really connected with them, the concept of their purpose and what's known and what's discovered, and how do you
Yes.
integrate those two and continue to evolve?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, um, before I let you go, I have a couple of questions that I always ask my
All
guests because
right.
they're so epic and the answers are always so like, mic drop. And so the first one is, Katie, I want you to imagine that it is generations ahead of where we are right now. And for whatever reason, all the wisdom, the writing, the access to the amazing how to choose to live resources have disappeared.
Mm,
And now you have been given the opportunity to write three thoughts
mm,
that can be carried with the human being of the future
mm,
to help them understand and create a world that will make them feel fully alive. What might those three things
mm.
be that you would share with the human being of the future?
So I'd start with the spirit of my dad's motto, which is today's a great day. So how can we find the good even in the challenging times, and how do we see that as an anchor for moving forward? So how can we find the good even in challenges and make today not just a good day but a great day? So if we can do that, that's I mean, I feel like almost anything can be overcome if we it's not about fake positivity, but it's about truly genuinely finding the good and the greatness and making it and embodying
Yes.
it. um, the second would be around, the path to success or the path to there is filled with challenges and the setbacks and this concept of the Daruma, the fall down 7 times, get up 8. So it's about learning your way forward. So if you can have that learning mindset and be willing to try something and learn from it, that's also going to help propel you towards betterness. And then the third would be what I now call this chain of learning, but it's the interconnectedness of us as human beings, that we have to help each other and work with each other. And when we do that, it's like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 equals exponentially so much more. So it's the power of the human connection and supporting each other. So finding that positive, mindset, the learning, and the human connection.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Final question. So I believe that we have one goal and one goal only,
Mm,
and that is to be taking our last breath, whenever that may be, saying, oh my gosh, this was so freaking epic. I hope I get the chance to do this again. So, from where you
mm,
stand now, what would looking back look like for you that maybe you've experienced, you've learned, you've shared that would allow you to be able to say, oh
Mm.
my gosh, this has been freaking epic. I hope I get to do it again sometime.
Well, first, I want to acknowledge it. Wow, that was like this question actually has brought me back to one of the most powerful and hard and but powerful days of my life of being there by the bedside when my dad died, and how he chose to die with the same positive spirit that he lived with. And so that gift, and so I'm very emotional because by the side of his bed, and that was just a really impactful day and experience. Um, but for myself, if I think of it, it would be the same thing. How, I don't know. I'm getting lost in the
Oh,
emotionality of the question, but really, have I left the world a better place and helped equip the people I've touched with making the world a better place too? Through those maybe it's those three things we just talked about,
yeah.
how to pass on this positive mindset, how to have be a learning enthusiast and be willing to try and learn from it. And to know that we this connection together is what is our true human superpower. And if I can in some part, and this is my maybe this is actually, as I talked through this is my purpose as what I do professionally and in my personal life too. If I've been able to connect with so many people and share that, then I have lived a purposeful and meaningful life.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And clearly I want to acknowledge you because clearly you have taken, like we said earlier, the most precious gift. I mean, to be able to gives someone that gift of the knowing, this beautiful wiring that helps you see a world filled with possibility and grace and beauty and the kind in humankind. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And the fact that you have taken this now and flowed your way through life so that it now has become not only your purpose, but your profession is really something epic to, yes, just super kudos to you, my dear. So,
Thank you, Meredith. And I feel your energy as well, and that's what really gives me my energy. People say, "Oh, you have so much energy and enthusiasm. It's contagious." And I say, "It's not. It's genuine because
yes,
I am living my purpose. I'm like my intention, and that comes through. So we have to find a way to find that thing that excites us, and that we can then
yes,
energetically pass that on to others." Whatever it is, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be an extrovert like
yes,
I am. That doesn't have to be the
right,
necessary thing, but there's
right.
something that we all uniquely can help others be inspired by.
Yes, I love that. And to give a bird's eye into what you pinpointed in me, a big aha for me was that I spent a lot of time, especially when I was younger, looking for the it, right? The it. And I felt like it had to, that it must be out there somewhere. And again, when I can find my whatever, fill in the blank, then I will be fill in the blank. All the happy stuff went in that blank. And it was when I learned, and for me, it was thanks to the most horrific boulder in my life, the one that crushed Skylar, that I realized that the it for me stands for kind of that inner technology. When I realized that it was that part of our soul, of our mind, that is capable of being the sovereign, the captain of the boat. I mean, we cannot miss the boat. We are the boat. We have to captain it. When we take responsibility for that, doesn't matter whether we're in stormy waters, smooth waters, the perfect water in the sail, that energy comes from within. And to your point, it just exudes without. So, therefore, when we do get those boulders, you and I And hopefully, many of you, as a result of listening from this, the reaction becomes, the response becomes sniffing for the clues, the gems within it, right? And if you're only on number 6 fall down and you get another boulder, you're like, wow, I just hit number 7. Hey, now I'm getting up for number 8. Booyah, baby. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There can be more falling
Yeah.
down. It's a metaphor, yeah. But
We
yes,
got more of those where they came from.
yes,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure. And and together we make the world better.
Yes.
Going back to one of your points, it starts with us and finding
Yes.
that reflecting for ourselves on what are those things that give our life meaning, and how can we then connect with others and hold precious what it means to be human.
I love it. Oh, perfect. Play. Woo! Truth bumps again. Oh my gosh. So, Katie, where can they find this incredible book of yours? And what can you share? I think you were going to share something about 100 years.
Oh, yes. Before we leave, so first behind me, for those of you watching, there is
Turn your camera a little
a
bit so you can.
poster
There we go.
here. You can't quite see it, but it's basically
Beautiful.
100 years from 2001 to 2100, I guess, to 2100. That feels so
Yeah.
long. And I got this at one of the company. I lead executive learning trips to Japan to be inspired by a lot of these same concepts that we've talked about here today, Meredith. And one of the very special companies I take people to, they've created these 100-year calendars, and their CEO, and they have them all over, but he uses them as a way of talking about this phrase that he actually said, that life is precious, don't waste a precious life. So our responsibility as leaders and as business owners is that every one of us is going to die pretty well, maybe not the children, but probably die on this calendar here. We don't know when that day is going to be. So how do we hold precious what it means to be human in our work environments and all of our environments? And how do each of us take this preciousness and do something with it,
Mm.
and live our best day as much as possible each and every day? And that it's just a reminder that one day, a bad day, is just one of many, 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 many days out there. There are other days, and our days are limited. There may be a lot, there may be a little, but it's a very, like, Buddhist approach
Oh,
to things. I think it's very powerful. It's impacted a lot of the leaders that I've taken to from Europe, South America, North America, about, oh, wow, how can we have a bigger, more holistic picture so we don't have people clocking in and clocking out, but really we're
yes.
bringing forward this preciousness of life in the work environment as well.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
so much more. We can dive into more. If
I
you want to
know.
learn more from me and with me, I'd love that. So my book is Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, Lessons from Toyota Leader Asao Yoshino and a Lifetime of Continuous Learning. You can go to, it's available on Amazon and a lot of other, online retailers, audiobook, paperback, so much more, ebook. And the website's learning to lead, leading to learn.com. And my website, kbjanderson.com, has all my resources, and chainoflearning.com is my podcast. And I have a YouTube channel too, but I really explore a lot of these concepts in my material on my website, on my YouTube channel, and of course on my podcast as well. So looking forward to connecting. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, so people please connect with me there too. KBJ Anderson, or Katie Anderson, is there. So I'm
I
so happy
love
to have you as part of my chain of learning, Meredith, now, and look forward to
Yes.
being connected with so many of people who listen here to your podcast as well.
Absolutely. I love it. So, Katie, it has been absolutely marvelous. If you are watching this, we will have those links in the show notes for you. But Katie, keep going out there and spreading your joy, your epicness. And if you're watching this, I know you know someone who would benefit from this conversation. So please don't be shy. Go ahead, of course, hit the subscribe button, but please share this. Reach out to Katie, reach out to me, Meredith Alexander, and you go out there and make today your epically inspired day. Epic for empowered, purpose driven, innovative, and collaborative. I'm Meredith Alexander. Katie, thank you so much. Ta ta for now. Until next time. So, wow, wasn't that episode amazing? And Katie just has this effervescence about her, doesn't she? So, today's epic tip, the your special mission today is to really dive in or develop a little bit more deeply your specific purpose. Now, you may have heard us say that don't expect the clouds to open and the angels to sing. Often, if you haven't quite figured out your purpose, it's because you're looking for some great big kind of drums and bugle parade to announce it. Usually, virtually everyone I've talked to who says I'm living my purpose, they express that to a certain amount, it kind of just happens and develops. Well, if you're at all like I was for decades, hearing that can be incredibly frustrating because what you may be saying is, but how do I find it now? I'm ready. I'm ready to feel like I'm living my purpose. So, yes, you can take a look and see what do other people know you for? What do other people come to you and say, oh my gosh, whenever I need blank or whenever I am thinking of blank, I come to you, I think of you. That's your superpower. And where you may be getting bogged down is getting stuck in the how, but I don't know how I would make that happen. Or more specifically, for most of us, it's I don't know how I would make a living. So hold that thought because often it's not the how, but the who. And here's the sweet spot. The first part of the who is not necessarily the other people, the other mentors, the other coaches, unless they can help you pull back the curtain on the thing that needs to be your very first who. And that is, as you may be guessing by now, that who is you. You are the epic who that is at the top of the equation. And here's the irony, most of us have lost track of who we are right now because, newsflash, you are not who everyone says you are. You are not even who you were maybe even a minute ago. Your mission today is to start opening the gateways for you to discover your own epic who. So, my challenge to you today is to do a mini version of an exercise that I take absolutely all of my clients through who are really looking to figure out what is that next big step for me. And where it starts is I call it the Epic You story map, where we literally map out not only where they are, but who they are. The place to begin is by writing down what is your passion? What do you love? What do you love doing? And your passion can be a concept. It can also be something lofty, like solving world hunger or standing up for the little guy, or even just something like integrity, leading with kindness, leading with love. So don't get obsessed with that every word has to be a clue and it has to point to someplace obvious. Just take a step back and just specifically focus on what do you love? Personally or professionally or spiritually or conceptually, what do you love doing, and then from there what are your skills, and again don't overthink it, just what are your skills, what are you known for, and that can be I'm known for being funny, I'm known for being someone who's easy to talk to, I'm known for someone who can take something that's very complicated and make it very simple. So what are your skills? What are your talents? What are those superpowers? What are those gifts? And what are the experiences that have helped to craft you into who you are? Some of those experiences are going to be positive, some not so much. So start with those three categories. And again, when I work one-on-one with my clients, we go much deeper and I'm helping them burst through their blind spots more quickly by asking them questions. But even even starting right here right now with these simple starting points, you can start to move the needle, which will make you more open to being able to go, aha when your purpose comes knocking. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed this bonus tip here a little bit longer than most of mine. But today is your day. Now is your time. So get out there. And of course, again, as always, if you know someone who would love to hear this episode, be sure to share it. And of course, be sure to like it. Maybe even leave us a comment about what you'd like to hear. And then hit subscribe and come back and see us every Tuesday. All right, see you soon. Bye for now.